A 17-year-old girl stood before the court and said, "Your Honor, I'll defend him because he's my father." Silence. The kind that freezes even the judge's hand mid-air. No one moved. No one spoke. Because no one could understand why she would defend the man who ruined her family. The girl's name was Emily Carter. Her father had been on trial for years, accused of crimes that tore their home apart. And yet, when the court appointed her as a witness, she came back as something else entirely. His defense attorney. Every word she spoke was calm, precise, and devastatingly mature. Section 14B of the Family Code, paragraph 2, says the right to defense belongs to everyone, even when the world has already condemned them. Each sentence landed like a hammer, not from anger, but from truth. Even the prosecutor stopped taking notes. It was like watching a child walk into a burning building, not to save herself, but to bring out the one who started the fire. This wasn't a story about law. It was about mercy disguised as courage. The courtroom expected revenge. She brought forgiveness, and it disarmed everyone more powerfully than any verdict could. Short pause. A judge raises an eyebrow. A gasp echoes in the back row. Her voice, steady. "I don't defend what he did. I defend the chance that he can be better." The courtroom lights flickered softly. Emily placed a small recorder on the wooden table. No drama, no theatrics, just the quiet click of a play button. A voice filled the room, her father's, cold, calculated. A man plotting to manipulate the system that had once protected him. "She'll never forgive me," the voice said, "but if I twist the truth right, I might still win." Gasps. Someone in the audience covered their mouth. Emily didn't look up. She simply whispered, "Exhibit A." Then came the school reports, each one marked with absences, grades dropping, counselor notes. Each page told a story no lawyer could refute. The silent damage of a home without peace. It was like watching someone rebuild a house brick by brick, not with tools, but with the broken pieces left behind. Next, the photographs. Old birthdays, half smiles, an empty chair at every celebration. She didn't accuse her father directly. She let the pictures speak. "This is what happens," she said softly, "when truth takes too long to show up." One by one, she called the witnesses, her mother, her teacher, her neighbor. Each voice added another piece to the puzzle, not to destroy a man, but to restore the truth that years of fear had buried. The father's attorney tried to interrupt. The judge raised a hand. "Let her continue." Every testimony was another fracture in the wall of lies. By the end, even the father's eyes had changed, the arrogance replaced by something raw, maybe regret. This wasn't revenge. It was exposure, truth unfolding like daylight after a storm. Emily didn't cry, she didn't shout. She simply closed her binder and said, "That's all the evidence I needed. The rest is between him and his conscience." The tension in the courtroom had become unbearable. The evidence was done, logic had spoken. But now, Emily was about to speak to something beyond logic. She stood, walked slowly toward her father, and stopped just a few steps away. Her voice trembled, not from fear but from weight. "Dad," she said softly, "what's the name of my favorite teacher?" The man blinked. No answer. "When's my birthday?" The silence was sharper than any verdict. Each page told a story no lawyer could refute, the silent damage of a home without peace. It was like watching someone rebuild a house brick by brick, not with tools, but with the broken pieces left behind. Next, the photographs. Old birthdays, half smiles, an empty chair at every celebration. She didn't accuse her father directly. She let the pictures speak. "This is what happens," she said softly, "when truth takes too long to show up." One by one, she called the witnesses, her mother, her teacher, her neighbor. Each voice added another piece to the puzzle, not to destroy a man, but to restore the truth that years of fear had buried. The father's attorney tried to interrupt. The judge raised a hand. Let her continue. Every testimony was another fracture in the wall of lies. By the end, even the father's eyes had changed, the arrogance replaced by something raw. Maybe regret. This wasn't revenge. It was exposure, truth unfolding like daylight after a storm. Emily didn't cry. She didn't shout. She simply closed her binder and said, "That's all the evidence I needed. The rest is between him and his conscience." The tension in the courtroom had become unbearable. The evidence was done. Logic had spoken. But now, Emily was about to speak to something beyond logic. She stood, walked slowly toward her father, and stopped just a few steps away. Her voice trembled, not from fear, but from weight. "Dad," she said softly, "what's the name of my favorite teacher?" The man blinked. No answer. "When's my birthday?" The silence was sharper than any verdict. Her voice broke just once. "I don't want your money. I don't even want your apology. I just wanted to be loved, not bought." The father's eyes filled, the arrogance gone. His lips moved, but nothing came out. The courtroom wasn't just silent now. It felt sacred. Even the judge's gavel stayed still, as if justice itself was holding its breath. Justice had already been served, not by punishment, but by a daughter's refusal to hate. Instead of condemning him, Emily walked back to her seat and whispered, "I still believe you can be better." The audience broke. Some wept, others prayed. The father lowered his head for the first time in years. Before the courtroom, before the headlines, there was just a small room, a stack of library books, and a girl who refused to give up. Emily was 15 when she overheard the truth, a conversation between her father and his lawyer, a plan to manipulate custody, to twist words into weapons. That night, something in her changed. She went to her teacher, Mrs. Holloway, a woman known more for kindness than authority. "If truth has rules," Emily asked, "can I learn them?" The teacher smiled sadly. "Truth doesn't need rules, Emily, but people do, and that's why law exists." From that day on, Emily stayed after school every evening. While others studied for prom, she studied precedents, rights, procedures, things that didn't belong in a teenager's vocabulary. It was like watching a gardener plant hope in a field of ashes. Each law she read wasn't just a rule. It was a rescue rope thrown toward the future. She volunteered at community centers, helped neighbors fill out forms, and practiced speeches in front of a cracked mirror, pretending the reflection was a judge. Her mother watched in silence, sometimes smiling, sometimes crying. She didn't understand the legal terms, but she understood the mission. Years passed. Her notebooks filled with quotes, laws, and prayers. One phrase appeared over and over again: "Mercy doesn't erase justice, it completes it." By the time she turned 17, Emily had done what no one expected. She didn't just prepare for the case, she prepared her heart to face the man who broke it. The real story didn't start in the courtroom. It started in the quiet decision of a girl who chose to learn instead of hate. She wasn't fighting against her father anymore. She was fighting for the part of him that could still be saved. The verdict came quietly. No cheers, no gavel slam. Just the soft, measured voice of the judge. The court recognizes the defendant's guilt, but also the extraordinary act of compassion that changed the course of this trial. He turned to Emily. "Miss Carter, you've reminded this court, and perhaps the world, that justice without mercy isn't justice at all." The courtroom erupted, not in noise, but in emotion. Reporters wiped their eyes. Her mother clutched her hand, and her father bowed his head, whispering the words no one expected to hear. "Thank you." It felt like watching winter melt, slow, silent, inevitable, as if forgiveness itself had changed the weather. 5 years later, Emily was in college studying law. Her photo appeared in magazines under headlines like "The Girl Who Defended Her Father" and "Redefined Justice." 9 years later, she graduated top of her class. Instead of joining a corporate firm, she opened a legal aid center, helping children who, like her, grew up in the shadow of broken homes. When asked why she chose that path, she simply said, "Because someone has to teach the law to the voiceless." 21 years later, Dr. Emily Carter stood before the United Nations, invited to speak on restorative justice and moral reconciliation. Her story had traveled the world, not as a courtroom drama, but as a movement of forgiveness. On the screen behind her, a single photo appeared. A teenage girl standing in court, saying words that echoed through decades. "I'm my father's lawyer." The audience rose in silence. Some cried, others smiled. Everyone felt something shift, a reminder that mercy doesn't make us weak, it makes us human. Emily didn't just win a case. She changed the definition of victory itself. In defending the guilty, she liberated the innocent part inside them both. "The smallest voices," she said, "are the ones that end up changing the world." The lights dimmed, applause faded, but her words lingered, like a quiet echo, reminding everyone that the purest kind of justice is love with a backbone. The courtroom fell into absolute silence. Every pause was heavier than words. The kind of silence that makes you lean forward, listening for even the softest breath. The judge slowly adjusted his glasses. A single tear slid down her mother's cheek. Emily shifted her weight, staring straight at her father. Switch between present courtroom tension and past preparation. Nighttime study sessions under a desk lamp. Whispered practice speeches in empty classrooms. Library stacks taller than a teenager. Fast forward through the years. 5 years later, college and recognition. 9 years later, legal aid center. 21 years later, United Nations speech. It's a cinematic sweep. A full story compressed into moments, leaving the audience awed, not tired. Emily took a deep breath, standing just a few feet from her father. Her voice was steady, but each word carried a weight heavier than any gavel. "Dad, I don't hate you, but I also don't want to be treated as a commodity. I want to be loved for who I am, not for what I can be worth." The courtroom froze. Time seemed to stretch. Her words pierced the tension like sunlight through storm clouds. Her father's face went pale. Arrogance vanished. For the first time, he saw the human being he had overlooked, his own daughter. Mothers, fathers, teachers, strangers in the gallery, all were struck by the honesty, courage, and raw love in that moment. No evidence, no legal argument could match this. It was like a child holding a fragile flame in a dark room, and instead of burning, it illuminated every shadow in the hearts of everyone watching. She wasn't demanding punishment. She wasn't seeking revenge. She was claiming her own dignity and love, and in doing so, she changed the trial forever. Emily's story isn't just about a courtroom. It's about people we see every day. Her mother, quietly working 2 jobs, exhausted but never giving up. Mrs. Holloway, the teacher who spent hours guiding a determined girl, believing in her when no one else did. Mrs. Jensen, the elderly neighbor who baked cookies for Emily and listened to her worries. Small acts of care that built courage. What is truly valuable? Love or money? Can truth survive lies and manipulation? What does a real parent look like? Present in heart, not just in name. What would you do if you were in Emily's shoes? Would you fight for love or settle for what's convenient? Could you forgive someone who hurt you, but still hold them accountable? It's like standing at a crossroads every day, choosing between what feels safe and what feels right. And sometimes the right choice is the hardest one. The courtroom lights dimmed. Emily sat quietly, her binder closed, the weight of years pressing gently on her shoulders. And then she spoke, Not to the judge, not to the audience, but to everyone who had followed her story. The smallest voices are the ones that echo the loudest in history. It wasn't just a sentence. It was a promise that courage, truth, and love, even when quiet and unseen, can reshape the world. Believe in the power of your voice. Stand up for what's right, even when you're underestimated. Share your courage, because the smallest acts ripple far beyond what you imagine. It's like a pebble dropped in a still pond. The waves touch places you'll never see, yet the effect is unstoppable. Emily's journey comes full circle, from a determined teenager in a courtroom to a woman whose voice changed hearts and redefined justice. The audience doesn't just leave inspired, they carry the story forward in action, thought, and hope.